Boom. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Free Mind Podcast with Dave Hurt. A lot of stuff going on today, people, as always. So first off, before we jump into it here, I just wanted to comment on something really quick. And this is really kind of a result of what I've been going through with getting, quote, canceled or having my Instagram account disabled for no reason. I've still not been given a legitimate reason, so don't really know. But what I wanted to say regarding that, because I've had some people ask me in so many words, do you regret basically posting what you've posted to get you essentially canceled or get your account disabled? And to be quite honest, I don't know what exactly I posted to get my account disabled, but regardless, my answer to that question is absolutely not. And I wanted to bring that up because in today's culture of silencing voices, of canceling people, of taking people down for really just having opinions you disagree with, ultimately when it comes down to it, I think it's incredibly important that we do not apologize. There's no reason for you to apologize if you've done nothing wrong. Just because someone disagrees with your point of view or your opinion and you believe wholeheartedly in what you're saying and you know that your intentions are pure and you mean no ill will or harm to anyone else, do not apologize. Definitely do not apologize. I refuse to apologize for the fact that I was posting, and I can only hazard a guess at what ultimately got my account disabled, but posting peer-reviewed scientific articles showing that the vaccine wanes in its effectiveness or masks are not very effective at mitigating the spread of disease in a community setting, especially cloth masks. All these things are peer-reviewed scientific articles, and I'm just sharing them to spread awareness and help educate people. I thought that was a good thing. At least it was once upon a time. And I will absolutely not apologize for that fact. People will try to have gotcha moments. They'll try to tell you that because of some aspect of your intrinsic state of being, that where you fall on the intersectional hierarchy makes you an oppressor and you should apologize for that and this and that and the other. And you absolutely should not, because as soon as you apologize and ultimately at the end of the day, you've done nothing wrong, right? You existing in your form that you have no control over is not anything that's your fault. And sharing facts based on actual scientific methods, you've done nothing wrong. Encouraging communication and encouraging a free and open mind, you've done nothing wrong. If you apologize, you're essentially admitting to the fact that you have done something wrong, and that's just simply not the case. So even if you feel compelled to apologize because people say they're offended or you did something wrong or you hurt their feelings, do not apologize. Do not apologize for being your true self. Never apologize if you believe in what you're saying wholeheartedly and you've done your due diligence and your intentions are pure and your intentions are good. Do not apologize. Don't cave to their desire for you to submit so that they get that moral win. Because you and I both know that ultimately they aren't right. And you should never apologize just because you've hurt someone's feelings. So with that, I wanted to jump into a few things today. First off, like the FBI, what the hell is going on with the FBI? Just a few things lately that have sort of bubbled to the surface. And this has been kind of over the last year. It's like, man, is the FBI just really running coverage as an asset to the Democrat Party or to politicians in general? Because there's been a few things that are quite suspicious. First off, we just heard recently that the FBI raided James O'Keefe, the founder and head of Project Veritas. They raided his home. They raided several of his journalist homes. And this is presumably because of the diary for Biden's daughter, Ashley Biden. And honestly, I didn't even know he had a daughter until all of this. And apparently this had leaked a year ago or something like that. And James O'Keefe, when they could not corroborate that it was actually her diary, he actually turned it into authorities. So I don't know why the FBI is raiding his home now, but apparently they confiscated his phone and they have access to all of his sources and all of his confidential documents and his journalist info, contact info, etc. So they just came in and took it. All right. The weird thing about it is sort of, and if I get this wrong, correct me in the comments, but I believe James said that the New York Times reached out to him like within an hour after the raid occurred. And he hadn't told anyone. He hadn't gone public with it, I don't believe. They reached out to him for comment. So that right there is super fishy. Like, how the heck did the New York Times know about it already, unless they had someone internally at the FBI tipping them off? So that's really weird. That's suspicious. And then, of course, this whole Ashley Biden thing. I mean, it's super creepy. It's like, what is, and apparently the diary was left behind, I guess, somewhere is what sources are saying, or kind of what the word is right now. It wasn't actually stolen. It was left behind, much like Hunter's laptop, which begs the question, like, what is up with these Biden kids just leaving stuff everywhere? I mean, it's like the FBI is running cover, cleaning up their messes constantly. But I will say, good on James O'Keefe for not actually publishing the diary when he couldn't corroborate the veracity of what was within it and if it was actually her diary. Because I tell you what, a lot of these, quote, journalists would not do so. We've seen time and time again that CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, all of these mainstream sources have published things based off anonymous tips or anonymous sources that they then had to retract later on. James O'Keefe is, along with Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, Crystal and Sagar over at Breaking Points. I mean, there's a handful of folks who truly are, and I didn't just name them all. There's definitely others who are real journalists and who do care about the art of objective journalism and actually getting to the bottom of what's real and what's the truth. So I tip my hat to him there. It's unfortunate that, of course, the establishment is crooked and the FBI raided his home. We still don't really know why. So FBI, okay, another deal with these guys lately, withholding footage of the Rittenhouse situation, right? So they apparently had high definition drone footage, an entire aerial view of everything that went down with Kyle Rittenhouse, and just didn't release it until recently, and still didn't even release the high def footage. They said that they lost it or it was destroyed. But apparently just recently we find out that the FBI had been holding on to footage of the entire Kyle Rittenhouse scenario as it played out. You very clearly see what happened, and they just didn't release it until just recently. So again, they allow this narrative to perpetuate that this guy is this horrible person who went out targeting, shooting people, and is a white supremacist and all this stuff, which the mainstream media ran with immediately before they actually tried to get to the bottom of what happened. And the FBI was complicit in that. And that thing has really just kind of blown my mind, that whole deal, because Kyle Rittenhouse, they painted, the mainstream media painted as this like white supremacist kid. And first off, he was there at the riots with a medical kit, helping rioters who were injured. He was protecting the property of someone he was, I guess, associated with, but also he had a medical kit and he was helping people. He had a firearm to protect himself. As it turns out, lots of people had firearms who were there, including the individual who attacked him. But nonetheless, they paint him as a white supremacist. And also, the guy shot white people. When he defended himself, he shot white people. So there was not a black person actually involved whatsoever in the Kyle Rittenhouse debacle. Yet the media has no issue with painting this minor as a white supremacist and just completely trashing him. And as it turned out, of course, we now see the full footage of what happened. Kyle was very clearly defending himself, and then corroborating this, the guy that Kyle shot in the bicep who lived admitted right there in the middle of the trial that, yes, Kyle did not fire upon me until I brandished my weapon, pointed at him, and I was going to shoot him. Kyle didn't shoot until then. And then you see it's already like a classic picture of the prosecutor putting his hand in, or his head in his hands, like, oh my God, I can't believe this guy just did this. But ultimately, what did he expect was going to happen? I mean, he clearly didn't prep his witness very well. And if he was intimately aware of the scenario and how it played out, he should have expected this, right? This is the truth of what happened, right? And you see it very clearly. Another deal with the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I didn't want to belabor all of this because I think that there's really not much of a story here. Unfortunately, they're trying to make a big deal out of it, and the kid was defending himself. And the mainstream media always wants a target that they can label racist. So, of course, a white guy who's there at the riots with a medical kit helping people that ends up shooting another white guy and injuring him and then kills another white guy. You know, he's a white supremacist. But anyway, what was I going to say? God, I already forgot. Kyle Rittenhouse. Man, guys, don't get old. You lose your train of thought pretty quick. But the footage was withheld by the FBI and just recently provided. And apparently they lost the HD footage that they had also. So, you know, we'll see what happens with this. Obviously, he should not be charged with anything. If you have an objective cell in your body, you can clearly see that the kid was defending himself. Oh, I remember what I was going to mention. The one thing that they did have was like he transported a weapon across state lines that it wasn't his, or, you know, he shouldn't have had. And it turns out that that's not the case either. It was actually someone else's weapon that they let him use. And I think based off of the law, the state law where they were in Wisconsin, he is actually allowed to do that. So I don't know what they really have on this kid. And it's a shame because most people aren't going to actually dig and look into this. And if you ask the average person who consumes, again, the mainstream, big, several sources, yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse, this horrible white supremacist kid who shot people in Kenosha. It's like complete BS. But anyway, the FBI is perfectly happy to feed into that narrative and withhold information and withhold evidence that very clearly exonerates him in any wrongdoing, in my opinion. Apparently, they also still have 10,000 hours of footage from the dangerous, terrible, deadly insurrection on January 6th, which they have not turned over. And when I say turned over, I mean to the folks who are still being held for January 6th. They won't provide them the footage to use in their defense, which is a little suspect if you ask me. I mean, if it was very clearly this terrible act of insurrection, why the heck are you guys holding on to 10,000 hours of footage that we have from the event? I mean, already some footage we've seen where they were very clearly just walking in to the Capitol and Capitol Police were letting people in. It was not this violent showdown where they broke through, and no, police were letting people peacefully walk into the Capitol. So my feeling is that it's probably more of that, you know, more footage just showing that it wasn't this awful thing as it's portrayed by the media. And, you know, speaking of January 6th and the insurrectionists, you know, who broke into the Capitol building and these terrible, deplorable people, you know, if you look at them versus Alec Baldwin and now Travis Scott, I mean, the insurrectionists killed fewer people than both of them. So, you know, where's the real story here? I mean, a person did die. Ashley Babbitt died, but she was actually shot by Capitol Police for, you know, being a huge, threatening, terrible person with no weapon and being a very small female. So, you know, he's so brave for doing that, taking her life. Okay. Another thing, the FBI held on to Hunter's laptop, right? And there was this joint effort at silencing the New York Post and, you know, censoring them on Twitter when they tried to report the story. And the FBI is complicit in that, to hold on to the laptop and, you know, not really go after him. Now, I believe there is an open investigation into this whole debacle because there was some terribly incriminating things on there for both himself and his father, and as such with Ashley Biden's diary. I mean, there was stuff in there about taking showers with her dad, and in parentheses is probably inappropriate. Well, yeah, it's definitely inappropriate. So we'll see where that goes. Just the frustrating thing is how complicit our intelligence agencies are with this stuff. And they're supposed to work for us, the people, right? Our politicians, our intelligence agencies, law enforcement, et cetera, like they work for us. We created this structure and this system to protect us. That is why it exists. And now they're completely content to just put the blindfold over our eyes and cover things up and prevent us from knowing the truth. And it's disgusting. Another thing that is making headlines is that, more sort of bad polling for Biden. 2/3 of Americans say that he should not run again in 2024. A large percent of that is Democrats, of course. You're talking 67% of Americans. And I think it's like, I think I saw this on Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. Shout out to those guys. Amazing show. I think it was like a 7-to-1 ratio with independents who say that he should not run versus he should run. So, the people aren't dumb, and it's showing. So, yeah, 2/3 of Americans say Biden should not run again in 2024. Talked about the Travis Scott stuff yesterday. There's a little more information that I've found out and doing a little digging and reading. So, turns out that apparently the police chief there actually warned Travis Scott and his people about the potential danger of injury and casualties and how dangerous it could be. And he was ignored. He or she, I don't know if the police chief was a man or a woman, I shouldn't assume, but the police chief was ignored by Travis Scott and his people. Apparently there was also some sort of countdown clock where every minute people had to move closer and closer to the stage. So you take 50,000 people and you place a requirement on them that they keep inching towards you. Of course, that's going to create a scenario where people get crushed. So that was new. That was something I wasn't aware of. And apparently Travis Scott has a history of encouraging reckless behavior, of kind of wanting there to be mayhem and putting his fans in danger. Is kind of his thing. And that was why the police chief also went and warned them. But again, he didn't care. Even as the show went on and it was very clear to him that people were injured and or dying, he continued to perform instead of stopping the show. So I don't really buy this BS when he says he cares about his fans. If I cared about someone, I wouldn't stand up there and watch them die. Also, kind of contributing to this even more, apparently the Jenners, who I think Travis is with Kylie Jenner. I get them confused. Honestly, couldn't care less, to be quite honest. But apparently those guys, the Jenners, Kylie and her family, whoever were there, as well as some other VIPs, were escorted out because there was imminent danger. They were escorted out to safety, but the show went on and other people died. So more and more information comes out. The more we find out, the more suspect this is. And it's honestly just pretty despicable, what I'm seeing so far. So that's the Travis Scott updates on what's going on there. And obviously there's more for us to find out. I'm sure news will continue to break. But Pete Buttigieg, if I'm saying that correctly, apparently there's a documentary out. I haven't seen it, but there's a documentary out about him. And it really is just kind of showing that he's just essentially a sociopath. And he has no emotions, and he is about as boring, apparently, as he comes across. Everything is calculated. It's all about climbing the ladder. And I haven't seen it, but what I've read about it is that it's actually kind of telling and a little surprising that they show that side of him, essentially showing that he is basically a personality-less robot who's only concerned with climbing the ladder of success in his eyes, what he sees as success. He's not as much inspired to help others and more so just inspired to accomplish things. And apparently that's a narrative that runs through the documentary. Again, I have not seen it, so That's just commenting on what I've read about it. I have no desire to see it. Something else about this guy that recently happened, you guys may have seen this. I guess it was at a White House press briefing, I think, and he came to speak. He is the Secretary of Transportation, I believe is his title. Makes sense, to give that title to a guy who was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, which had a total of like 60 buses for the entire town. And so let's put him in charge of infrastructure for the entire country. That makes a whole bunch of sense. Once again, a recurring theme that we discuss here is hiring people based on their merits, not checking off an intersectional box. And it seems like this was another move to do that, just like this president did with his vice president. And what do you end up with? You end up with people who don't get the job done. Anyway, he comes here to this press conference to talk about infrastructure. He gets asked a question, which the question on its face is pretty hilarious. It doesn't make a lot of sense anyway. But the question was, can you give us the construct of how you will deconstruct the racism built into the roadways? I think is the question verbatim. Now, I honestly don't even know what this means. A roadway is not racist. Now, of course, there is infrastructure and there is all sorts of relics of racism from the past. So certain roadways were put in certain areas to prevent travel from black to white neighborhoods and to separate what were then black and white neighborhoods, etc. Redlining absolutely existed, but these are all relics of the past. So it's weird to talk about correcting the racism of roadways today. Roadways are not racist at all, but Mayor Pete replies to this, and it's going all around. I mean, it's gotten pretty viral, but he talks about correcting things like overpasses that were made too short for buses with black and Puerto Rican kids to pass through. So apparently, I don't know, black and Puerto Rican buses are really tall, and so overpasses prevent them from getting places. It was just a really weird thing. There's all kinds of issues with it. I mean, assuming that buses are predominantly people of color, that's a pretty racist assumption to make. And it was just a really weird thing, and it just shows more and more how out of touch this guy is with reality. So I don't know. It's just weird. And again, it's what you get, I think, when you take someone who's got he's got like no experience, right? And it just showed right there how egotistical the dude is and how obsessed with being sort of this ever climbing conqueror of the ladder of success. When you go from the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and you think you can be president of the United States. Like, come on, man. Give me a freaking break. So anyway, he gives this really awkward, weird, out of touch answer where he talks about overpasses and buses with black and brown people and how those are racist. And the way we correct that is to take care of those racist overpasses. So that was a thing that happened. Once again, just showing, as a recurring theme in this show, how out of touch the ruling elite class is with the actual real world and the things that people face. Lastly, and it gives me no pleasure to report this, but apparently, and again, fact check me if I'm wrong, by the time you're listening to this could have changed, but this is just what's circulating now. Apparently, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, got a booster shot on the 27th of October. Today is November 9th when I'm recording this. And he has not made a public appearance since. He actually canceled his trip to Scotland for the climate change summit. And it is circulating that the symptoms that he's gotten from this Moderna booster are similar to GBS, which is Guillain-Barré syndrome. It's a nervous system disorder. And that is why apparently he's been kept under wraps. And his wife, I guess, put out a tweet, but she then deleted it, sort of castigating people for wondering where the governor is, 10 or 11 days after his booster shot, canceling things on people. Look, if you're a public figure, especially if you're a public figure who's very outspoken about the need for vaccines, specifically in our children, and you disappear off the face of the earth after getting a booster shot, of course people are going to ask questions, and of course you're going to have some explaining to do. The nerve that these people have or they think that they can be elected into an office as a public servant and then not face the scrutiny and the criticism of the populace is just disgusting. I mean, you saw it when this guy went and ate at the French Laundry, not wearing a mask, despite imposing these draconian lockdowns and mask mandates on his own people. And look, if the guy really is having symptoms of GBS from this Moderna booster, thoughts and feelings out to him, whatever. I don't wish ill will on anybody, but it's very irresponsible if that's the case and he's trying to hide it and cover it up when he's the one pushing these shots on people, claiming that they're safe and effective. So if it's true, and Gavin Newsom is having GBS from this Moderna booster and he's covering it up, he's hiding it from the people, that might be one of the most vile, disgusting things he's done yet, because the people deserve to know the truth. You're the one pushing this stuff on them. And if you're having an adverse reaction and you choose to hide it, then that makes you even more diabolical and despicable than I even thought. That said, I hope you get better if you're sick. But let's be honest, let's be truthful about this stuff. It's your duty. You didn't get that job based on merits. You got that job based on the fact that people elected you. So do the people right, do the right thing, tell people what's going on. You're in the public eye. You're an example. Be an example for once. So anyway, that's what's going on with him. That's all I got for you guys today. Let me know topics you want covered in the future. Let me know guests that you want me to talk to in the future. I have a guest coming up this week who is a veteran, a bodywork specialist, a self-defense specialist, has a new company that's opening up. A lot of cool stuff. Brad Robinson, we're going to be talking. I'm trying to bring you guys a diverse assortment and array of guests, so definitely give me suggestions. My whole thing is I just want to talk to cool people. That's all. Interesting, cool people. Left, right, center, I don't care. All I care about is truthfulness, openness, being willing to discuss anything and everything. And that's pretty much the only criteria that I have for the guests of this show, because I want to bring you guys value. I want to talk to interesting people. I want to be able to showcase people to the world and hopefully get them some exposure as well. So as always, drop those suggestions in Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you can comment and let me know. As always, you can find me on Instagram at The Free Mind Podcast, on Twitter at I Am Dave Hurt. You can also find Just Work Co., which is going to be launching some apparel here soon, at Just Work Co. on Instagram. And then if you're into outdoor hunting and fishing style content, you can check out at Just Work Outdoors on Instagram as well. YouTube channel is The Free Mind, or it's just Free Mind Podcast if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever else. Check out the video version. And lastly, for free shipping on Phorm products, the only supplements I've used for the past 3+ years, you can go to firstform.com/hurt, H-U-R-T. If you have any questions about any of their products, if you have any questions about supplementation or nutrition in general, it's an area that's near and dear to my heart. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm a big fan of Phorm products, and I'm happy to help you with anything you need. So with that, guys, until next time, keep your minds free.